All right. I'd like to begin with a short story before we jump into the four-step process. This will help you understand a little bit more about where I'm coming from as I've worked with hundreds and literally thousands of individuals, as I've gathered research and trained other therapists to help them understand how to best help individuals heal from sexual betrayal and infidelity. But it really began back in the early 2000s. I just graduated with my PhD, and I was working with an individual who had been wanting to overcome an unwanted sexual behavior. As we sat together, he hadn't told his wife yet what he had been engaging in. But by the next session, she had discovered what he had been doing. And he came in really distraught, really having a hard time. And he said, I don't know what to do. My wife, I feel like she's losing her mind. She's going crazy. She won't talk with the children. She came in the other night, woke me up in the middle of the night, and we've been fighting ever since, and I don't know what to do. So, being trained as a marriage and family therapist, I invited her to come into my office just so I could understand what she was experiencing and to see how I could best help them as a couple. Now, when she came in that day, I had never experienced the pain and the anguish that she was feeling, and quickly realized that even with a PhD, I did not know how to help her. That was in the early 2000s. A few months later, I was talking with a colleague, and she said, "Have you been experiencing this?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, we weren't trained in it. What can we do to help?" And so we began gathering research. We put together an assessment to assess for post-traumatic stress. We have found over the past 20 years that many individuals who've been betrayed are experiencing post-traumatic stress symptoms, and yet it's hardly being talked about. So one of my core goals is to help educate and inform individuals who've been betrayed so they don't feel isolated, they don't feel alone, they feel heard, and they feel understood. So if this is you, I want to now walk you through that four-step process, what I'm calling the better way to healing. Because as I've trained therapists and as I've trained religious leaders throughout the country and literally throughout the world, I found that many people don't understand what betrayed partners are going through. And quite frankly, that's not okay. Because many individuals who are untreated or not treated properly, they suffer longer than they need to. And you don't need to. Let me walk you through that process. It's not complicated, but it is hard and it does require work. And so I don't want to mislead you in any way. I want to walk you through the process and give you the tools and resources so you know how you can accelerate your healing. Now, let me share a couple of other things. As I was gathering research, literally over 15,000, maybe even 20,000 at this point, people have taken an assessment that we created clear back in the early 2000s. It's now been published in an article in a professional journal showing that PTSD is something that manifests after discovering infidelity and sexual betrayal. So it's a validated reality. And I want to put that out there in the beginning because so many people, they don't feel heard and they don't feel understood. But it's now research-based, and that's really important to understand. If individuals are experiencing PTSD after sexual betrayal, they should be treated with proper PTSD treatment recommendations. And that's the model I follow because that's what the research has shown to us over the years. All right, one other thing. I have a TED Talk that I did in 2017 that over 1.1 million people have watched because I think it's such an important topic. Individuals are literally watching it because they realize that that is what they're experiencing. So I want to now share this model with you because if you can understand this, you can accelerate your healing and you don't have to stay suffering for so long. All right, so now let me get started. The first step is what I refer to as genuine understanding. It's really hard to treat what you don't understand. I have met individuals who've suffered in silence for 10, 20, and even 30 years. They haven't told anybody about what their partner has done, and they have stayed stuck in the pain and the PTSD symptoms that I will refer to in a little bit. So the first step of the core model is to seek genuine understanding. The way that we do this is actually through the assessment that we created many years ago. Because that assessment helps us understand as professionals and helps you understand how to get the best treatment. I'll give you an example of that. A few years ago, after administering the assessment to an individual, I'd been reading through her results. And as she came in for the very first time, because I administered this assessment before we met, and I'd been reviewing it. And she came in and I said, hey, I just want to let you know, I'm glad you're here, and I've reviewed your results. And she looked up at me with this look, almost a tear in her eye. And she said, I'm not doing very well, am I? And I looked at her and I said, I think you're doing the best you can given your circumstances. So together, let's walk through what symptoms you're experiencing, and then let's create a plan around it. By the time she left that day, there was so much hope because she began to realize that there is a path, there is a roadmap to healing. And so we outline that. That's what I'd like to do with you. So the first step is we have to increase your awareness, and we do that through an assessment. Now, I'm going to show you how to get that assessment in a few minutes, because I want you to have the same thing that I've given to 15,000 people in my career, because with that, your insight will increase and you will begin to understand what you're experiencing. In fact, after taking the assessment, many people tell me, I finally feel like I'm not going crazy, that what I'm experiencing is normal. It was very validating. That's what I want to do for you. I want you to understand what you've been going through, the pain and the hurt, and I want you to realize that you're not alone. That's my hope. All right, so step number one is we have to have a genuine understanding. As a part of that, we need to also understand that there are going to be people around us, including maybe even our own spouse or partner, that won't understand us. And that's one of the other things that I found is many people, they misunderstand what betrayed partners are going through. Why can't you just move on? Can't you just forgive me? These are the types of statements that I hear over and over and over again. No, it's not just a matter of forgiving. It's not a matter of just moving on, because it is a traumatic experience. It creates a relationship rift, an injury, as Sue Johnson says. And we have to address that injury, and we need an environment where people around us understand it. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in one of the other core solutions. So number one is we have to create an awareness, genuine understanding within ourselves, and we have to find the people around us that can support and validate what we're going through and help us work through it. Number two is a little bit more difficult. It's what we call the internal exploration. A lot of people feel like, well, my partner created the problem, they need to fix it. Unfortunately, it's not that easy. I have found that betrayed partners often form internalized beliefs, negative self-beliefs. There's something wrong with me. I'm not enough. They feel unlovable. And in some cases, they feel stupid for not discovering earlier what their partner was engaging in. And so those internalized, what we call internalized beliefs, begin to influence every aspect of their life. They begin to feel like they are worthless. Now, I hope this isn't you. But if it is you, that's where really deep work needs to occur. And help is available. I can show you how to do that. But that kind of work, it really requires a lot of personal awareness and understanding. And I want to walk you through that step, because if we can get you to understand what you're experiencing and work through those negative, what we call negative core beliefs, then you can begin to reclaim your identity and be confident in yourself again. Reclaim the true, the real you. That's an important step to the healing journey. The other part of that is that I have found in the research and in talking with my clients throughout the years that many of them are angrier than they've ever been. In fact, in some cases, they say, I've never been this angry. I'm yelling, I'm not available for my children, and I am racing. My mind, it just feels like it's flooded with information, and I've got all these questions, and I don't know what to do. And it won't stop, and it won't go away. Can you help? And the answer is yes. But we have to follow the steps that actually have been proven to work. And you have to understand those. And this is where I think we go wrong. Even in our society, a lot of people, when they go get help for this specific issue of dealing with their partner's betrayal, they're told that they have anxiety or that they have depression. And that's what my research shows. I actually have asked individuals in my research what their diagnosis was when they went to get help. And usually it's anxiety and depression. So if I give you a pill for anxiety or depression, it may temporarily help reduce some of the symptoms, but it's not getting to the root, which are the PTSD symptoms that the research has now shown that people have. Do you see the problem here? So we can go to a doctor and we can get help for depression and anxiety, but we're not dealing with the root or the real issue, the deeper issues. That is a problem. And so if we're going to succeed, we need to make sure that we're treating the proper symptoms that you actually have. And again, that's in the assessment that I've created. So hold on, I'll give you that assessment today. I want to give you that assessment for free, no charge. Because that's how important it is to me that we educate individuals so they can get proper treatment. To me, that is actually the best I can do to help, is help you assess, help you understand yourself. Understanding two parts that we've talked about in this core part, number 2, is that we have to help you deal with your internalized beliefs, negative core beliefs, and we have to help you deal with the racing mind, the anxious mind. Because if we can do those two things, we can accelerate your healing. Now, the third part, or the third core solution that I want to talk about, is actually related to your social environment, to getting what I call positive support. Now, what this means is, in my research, many individuals, they have been struggling, many of them with isolation, feeling alone, feeling like they don't dare talk with other people. If I'm going to help you heal, and if people are going to help you heal, you have to have the proper support around you. Now, sometimes people say, I don't ever want to go to a group, or I don't ever want to talk about this. I'm too embarrassed, or I'm too ashamed. Now, I don't know if this is you, but what I've discovered is that when people suffer in silence, time doesn't take away the wound. In fact, your partner, if they're maybe trying their best, or maybe they don't know how to respond, in many cases, they really freeze up and they are ashamed of their behaviors and they don't know how to respond to your pain. And so they're shutting down, they're moving away from you, and they can't offer the validation and the support you need because they're the ones who hurt you. And yet they're the ones who you long for it the most. This is where many couples get stuck, and they don't know how to resolve that as a couple. In fact, the research shows that about 6 out of 10 divorces today, 6 out of 10, one of the reasons listed is some form of sexual betrayal. This is a huge, huge issue. So it's important, if you're going to rebuild your relationship, that you know how to do that. Now, I can talk about that in another time and walk you through the steps of how to do that. Because I found that many individuals, they don't know how to do that. Now, I can show you that process as well. But right now, I'm talking about helping you heal. And that's core need of yours. Because if we don't help you heal, the relationship can't. When you have a racing mind, when you're not sleeping at night, when you feel those negative core beliefs that there's something wrong with you, like many do, it's really hard to move forward in a relationship where you can connect again. All right, so getting genuine support or healthy social support around you, it can come in a few different ways. It can come from a close friend or family member if they can understand you. Some can't. In fact, in my research, I asked the question, do you have people who support you? And if you did reach out, how effective were they? Over 50% of individuals, now this may surprise you, over 50% said that they didn't feel heard. They didn't feel understood by the people closest to them. So it's really important that you find close people to you, people who can support you. I'll talk about that process and walk you through that as well. And then finally, the fourth core part here. This is really important, and it's finding joy again. It's finding the inner core of you, that part that has been with you all along, but because of the betrayal has been lost. The one that found joy in people and relationships, the one that enjoyed being outside and going for hikes, the one who found music, that you. The fourth core part of healing is rediscovering yourself. So these are the 4 core parts. Now, walking you through step by step and how to do that, that's something that if you're interested, I can show you how to do. Now, let me begin this process with you by having you take the assessment. Again, it's a free assessment. If you'll click on the link, I'll show you how to get that assessment. And then with that information, you can make an informed decision of how to deal with those PTSD symptoms and your best steps moving forward. So I invite you now, leave your name, leave your email, and I will directly get you that assessment, and you can begin your healing process in earnest with proper treatment the better way to heal after sexual betrayal. All right, we'll talk to you soon.